Ice Cube does nothing for me as a rapper and an actor.
Okay.
Nothing. Song that makes me want to jump out of a window is Have a Good Day. Today was a good day.
Before Ice Cube even spoke up, Aries Spears was already adding fuel to the fire. It all went down on Vlad TV, a platform where Spears has never held back. But this time, he didn't just share an opinion, he went all in. He didn't just critique Cube's artistry, he tore it down completely.
Ice Cube does nothing for me as a rapper and an actor.
Okay.
Nothing.
Let's start with the rap. Fuck the Police. You don't think that's a classic song?
It's classic because of what it represents in terms of black struggle symbolism and what black people have gone through with the police historically. It's the song that makes you go, yeah! Yeah, I get how it can touch your emotions, but it don't do nothing for me.
It was the type of response that makes interviewers sit up, knowing they just caught a headline. Spears didn't pause, didn't soften his words, and didn't hide behind humor. It was straight, raw dismissal of a West Coast pioneer. And just when you thought he'd stop there, he kept going.
Song that makes me want to jump out of a window is Have a Good Day. Today was a good day. Rolling down the street in my 6'4". Police didn't come bother us no more.
That's not the way the lyrics go.
Whatever, but that cadence, that fucking cadence. You might as well have them say green eggs and ham. Sam, I am.
The host even tried to step in, reminding Spears he was twisting the lyrics, but Spears shrugged it off. That was the whole play. Strip the song of its edge and make it sound clownish. For fans who saw that track as a cultural landmark, it felt like watching someone vandalize a classic mural. And then Spears turned the heat up even more, shifting from Cube's music to his acting. That's when the shots got personal.
And I ain't getting in that lake. There's snakes in there. That's him in every move. No depth, no range. And this is why it pisses me off as a comedian when they cast rappers in comedies. Because as a comedian, we're going to bring our natural God-given talent to a script where we go, this is funny, but now let me sprinkle my talent on it and elevate it.
To Spears, Cube wasn't just the issue, it was the whole trend of swapping seasoned comedians for rappers in Hollywood comedies. He called it a creative robbery, trading sharp timing for watered-down slapstick. Every line made it clear this wasn't playful roasting, it was a direct hit. What Spears didn't realize was that Cube would hear every word, and when he clapped back, he wouldn't yell, rant, or even crack a grin. His answer came colder, sharper, not on Instagram Live, not through a diss track, but in a low-key radio studio. Right in the middle of an interview after someone read him Spears' comments. And instead of matching Aries' wild energy, Cube flipped the script.com, measured and surgical. That's what made his response sting even harder.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the people that, they usually don't like me when they coming from that angle. That's cool though. You know, everybody got their opinion, and they all stink. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's cool. You know, he entitled to his opinion. It's the feeling is mutual. You know, I don't think he on anybody's list of top 10 comedians.
It landed like the verbal equivalent of a point-blank headshot. No yelling, no hype, just a cold, factual takedown. In less than 30 seconds, Cube stripped Aries' argument bare and finished him off with one word: sucker. Once that clip hit the internet, the echo chamber took over. Memes flooded, timelines with sucker stamped across Spears' face, while fans lit up comment sections clowning him for picking the wrong fight. But it didn't stop with the fans. The industry clocked it too, and some of Cube's defenders weren't just rappers. They were people whose names alone could make life uncomfortable for Spears. The first to step up was Michael Jai White, actor, martial artist, and someone you do not want smoke with. He made it clear he had Cube's back. Instead of bowing out, Spears doubled down, threatening to pull up on White. Two outsiders. It looked insane, a comedian with zero fight resume trying to press a man who could fold him in seconds. Then came the call from Willie D of the Geek Boys, and unlike White, Willie didn't talk like a fan or peer. He came at Spears like family, with a tone that made it sound less like an opinion and more like Spears had crossed a sacred line.
You know, Willie D called me.
Okay.
I was in Louisville, Kentucky. And this nigga, and I love Willie D, that's my man, but this nigga called me like I disrespected his mama. He was like, Aries, man, you don't understand. What Ice Cube done did for the culture, man. And hip hop. Why you say? And I go, Willie, it's a subjective opinion. I'm allowed to not like Ice Cube. I know, man, but Aries, man, he was on me.
The call didn't move Spears one bit. If anything, it fueled him. Just more ammo for the next mic he could grab. But to everyone else, the writing was on the wall. The more Aries talked, the smaller his circle got. Then, just when the drama seemed ready to cool down, fate handed Spears a card he couldn't resist playing. Ice Cube's newest movie dropped, and the reviews were brutal. Not bad, not mixed. 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. A flatline, that kind of headline is rare in Hollywood. The sort of thing that makes blogs light up and fans do double takes. And for Aries Spears, it felt like the universe had just validated his entire rant. Proof. Receipts. He pounced on it instantly. Yeah, I've never seen a 0% before. He laughed. 0. For Spears, it was vindication. For everyone else, it was desperation. The sound of a man clinging to numbers instead of winning the culture.
You know, again, there are people that if you read the comments will go, man, I thought it was great. I thought he was great. Okay. But the mass majority of people went, come on, dude.
Yeah.
And again, that has nothing to do with his character. That has nothing to do with him as a man. That has nothing to do with his immense contributions to the game and the culture. I'm talking about his artistry. And art is meant to be subjectively critiqued. Why can't you motherfuckers understand it? Why y'all get so fucking butthurt over feelings, over opinions?
It was a victory lap that looked more like obsession. Spears wore it like a badge of honor, framing the 0% as proof he'd been right all along. But instead of gaining respect, he came off like a man consumed by Cube, chasing every scrap of validation. Even fans who admitted Cube wasn't the greatest actor couldn't rock with the way Spears gloated. To them, this wasn't sharp comedy, it was fixation. And while Spears was out here savoring his Rotten Tomatoes win, the comedy world lined up to roast him. Corey Holcomb, never one to bite his tongue, torched Spears for disrespecting Cube, and then took it a step further. He challenged him to a boxing match. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. Then came Faison Love, doubling down with even harsher words. He didn't just clown Spears, he flat out questioned his relevance, called him a raccoon, and asked what he'd ever contributed to the culture next to Cube. And buried beneath all those jabs was a theory that started sticking. Maybe Spears didn't actually have a problem with Cube. Maybe the real issue was deeper, more personal, a bitterness toward the way Cube carved a legacy Spears could never touch.
He was this cocky kid. He would get deals, and like him and Dave Chappelle would get all these deals.
One that suggested this beef wasn't about artistry at all. According to Corey Holcomb, Spears might still be carrying resentment from never being cast in Cube's Friday movie series. Pure speculation. Sure, but the timing didn't help. Ice Cube had just announced progress on a new installment of Friday, and Spears' name was nowhere near it. Whether true or not, the rumor gave the feud a new twist. Now, people weren't just debating Spears' critique, they were questioning his motives. And for anyone familiar with Aries Spears' career, this wasn't the first time disrespecting a legend had turned into a dangerous mistake. Years before he was trading shots with Cube, Spears had already learned, or at least should have learned, that taking aim at a hip-hop giant carried real-world consequences. Back in the day, Spears did a bit mocking DMX on stage. It was just another impression, another punchline. But off stage, word got back to the Rough Riders, and they weren't laughing. According to Spears, members of X's crew approached him not to talk, but to send a message. One of them even pulled a move that sounded straight out of a prison flick, peeling back his lip to reveal a razor blade tucked neatly inside. That was a warning shot, crystal clear. But years later, instead of steering clear, Spears doubled down, even harder at Ice Cube, as if the lesson had never landed.
You know, he might feel a certain way, so I'm gonna say some things obviously complimentary about him, and I need you to kind of, co-sign that. And as I told him, and as I said on my post after I did it, I never questioned Ice Cube the man. I never questioned his character. And in my post, I said, look, I tip my hat to the fact that he's a pioneer, a trailblazer, his contributions musically to the culture, particularly the West Coast. He's an icon. He's a superhero. My issue was, I just don't like his artistry. And I feel like we as human beings should have that right. That's my opinion. I don't have to like him musically. I don't have to like him as an actor. You know what I'm saying? That's my preference. Why can't I be allowed that?
It was that same defensive posture framing every backlash as proof that people just couldn't handle the truth that made Spears look less like a bold truth-teller and more like a man who refused to learn from history. And as much as he tried to spin the Cube beef into some noble debate over artistic critique, the cracks in his own arguments made it impossible to keep the focus there. In the middle of all that chaos, Spears made an attempt to clean things up. It happened during an appearance on Fat Joe and Jadakiss' podcast. Before the cameras even rolled, Joe pulled him aside with a simple request. If Cube ever came on the show, they didn't want the vibe to get weird. Just say something respectful to balance it out. Spears agreed, but when the moment came, the compliment he delivered felt forced, backhanded, and hollow. Instead of repairing the damage, it only made him look like a man caught between doubling down and backpedaling, a contradiction that left his stance looking shakier than ever.
The first thing Joe does before we start is he pulls me aside, go in this little room. He goes, look, man, I know who you are. I know what you do.
By the time Aries Spears started firing shots at Ice Cube, his public image was already carrying heavy baggage. Years before this feud, Spears had been hit with headlines that had nothing to do with rap beefs or comedy rivalries. Controversies that painted him as reckless, confrontational, and, to some, self-destructive. So when he went after Cube, it didn't feel like an isolated critique. It felt like part of a pattern, a man always looking for the next fight, even when it put his career in the crosshairs. That's why the backlash snowballed so fast. The Cube slander wasn't landing in a vacuum. It was landing on top of years of messy interviews, strained industry relationships, and questionable headlines. To fans, it looked less like Spears standing up for artistic honesty, and more like someone burning bridges because he had none left to cross.
Comedians Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears are being sued for allegedly sexually exploiting 2 minors.
And in the court of public opinion, dropped or not, the stain was permanent. For a lot of people, that headline was the first thing they now associated with Aries Spears. Not Mad TV, not his impressions, not stand-up, just that lawsuit. And when you're already under that kind of shadow, you can't afford to move sloppy. Every word, every feud, every jab gets filtered through that lens. So when Spears went after Ice Cube, one of the most respected figures in hip-hop and film, people weren't just questioning his critique, they were questioning his credibility as a man. That's why the backlash spread so quickly. It wasn't only Cube's fanbase dragging Spears. It was casual observers, news outlets, even comedians who'd otherwise stay out of rap beefs. To them, it felt like Spears was already on thin ice, and now he was swinging at someone untouchable. It wasn't just risky, it was career suicide.
But your equation you'll never be satisfied. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna be real. No.
She looked Spears dead in the eye and said what millions of viewers had never heard before, that working with him was toxic. According to Wilson, Spears had a pattern of disrespecting castmates, especially women, and she'd carried that resentment. For years, on what was supposed to be a lighthearted reunion, her words landed like a grenade. The room went silent. Bobby Lee, usually quick with a joke, sat frozen, and unlike the Ice Cube situation, Spears couldn't dismiss this as just an opinion about his acting chops. This was personal testimony, coming from someone who'd shared the stage with him for years. For fans, it stripped away the last shield Spears had been trying to use, that he was just keeping it real about other people's talent. Here was someone keeping it real about him. Clips of Wilson's takedown went viral almost instantly. And for many viewers, it explained everything: the arrogance, the feuds, the way Spears seemed to burn every bridge he crossed. Now, it wasn't just Cube or Rotten Tomatoes. It was his own peers exposing a pattern.
See a comedian? Because he ain't never made me laugh, so usually don't like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people that, they usually don't like me when they coming from that angle. That's cool, though. You know, everybody got their opinion, and they all stink. You know what I'm saying? So, at the end of the day, it's cool. You know, he entitled to his opinion. It's the feeling is mutual. You know, I don't think he on anybody's list of top 10 comedians.
She looked Spears dead in the eye and called him spiritually bankrupt. What followed wasn't comedy, wasn't banter. Spears himself admitted to being a serial cheater and a bad father. No jokes, no deflection, just raw, ugly truth. For fans, it was jarring. For critics, it was confirmation. Aries Spears wasn't just feuding with Ice Cube, he was wrestling with his own past, his peers, and his reputation. By then, the list of people standing with Cube or piling on Spears had grown so long it didn't even feel like a one-on-one anymore. It was a cultural pylon with Spears stuck at the bottom. And yet, after weeks of headlines, memes, and clapbacks, Spears still pushed for the last word. But the last word that mattered didn't come from him. It came from IceCube.com, clipped, almost bored. No theatrics, no raised voice. Just a half-minute dismissal that froze the feud in place. Because after all the noise, all the meme, all the back and forth, the moment people remember most isn't Aries Spears talking. It's Ice Cube, leaning back in that radio studio, dismantling him without even breaking a sweat. That "suckers usually don't like me" line became the headline, the meme, the soundbite that stuck to Spears like a tattoo he never asked for. No matter how he tried to clap back, it was always waiting in the comments. Short, sharp, untouchable. For Aries Spears, the Ice Cube feud started as a bit, a chance to stir the pot, flex some opinions, maybe grab a headline. But by the end, it turned into a case study of how fast a career can get buried under the wrong kind of attention. Because here's the truth: you can call out a legend. You can double down, roast their work, even laugh when the critics back you up. But if the culture decides they're riding with the other guy, your words don't just miss the mark. They come back to bury you. And if you're loving these raw, behind-the-scenes hip-hop stories, don't forget, hit that like button, drop a comment, smash subscribe, and share this with your people. We've got way more heat coming your way, so stay locked in. We'll catch you on the next one.